What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my one, my only, my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. You know what time it is now that we're almost 2 weeks into the NBA season, is we are going to take stock of some of the most dominant starts in the NBA and decide whether or not they're for real. And then we'll wrap up with like a couple just quick notes on things that we're monitoring, but we've isolated a handful of teams that are, by their point differential, by their record, however you want to frame it, they are lording over the rest of the league. And we need to endeavor to find out, is this real or is this not? Before we get started, Mr. Grant Hughes, how are you doing?
I'm ready to get off to a hot start here. How about that? Let's just keep everything focused on getting out of the gates quickly. I think before we start, I do enjoy that we have some usual suspects and some very unusual suspects for these hot starts. So we have the right mix for discussion purposes, I think, here.
Having looked, and we'll go in order of their point differential right now, because I think the first team people are going to be like, oh, like these guys, but we're just going by point differential. Had I needed to pick which teams would have made this list before the season, I'm pretty sure of the ones that made the cut here, I might have been able to predict two of them. I don't know that I saw the others coming.
And at least that many would have been teams you would have projected to get off to horrible starts. I'm speaking for myself.
Right.
So
right.
We really covered all the bases.
Well, let's figure out, Grant, if we need to adjust our priors on any. The sleeper of all sleepers, the Denver Nuggets. They did lose their opening game. So like that was, maybe that was cause for concern. They lost that game to the Warriors. They've also played the Suns, the Timberwolves without Anthony Edwards, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans. That was a third quarter to behold. Don't know if you not unless you're a Pelicans fan, Grant, in that game. What have been your impressions of the Nuggets so far, Grant?
Well, you mentioned it, the game that they lost, Aaron Gordon had 50 points and hit 10 threes. So clearly he's a deeply selfish player and just went out to get his. Like the fact that that's the game they lost when he was unbelievable, it just kind of speaks to they're really good. They have beaten bad teams. They beat the Suns. As you mentioned with the Wolves, the Pelicans barely count as an opponent at this point with the way things are falling apart there. This is roughly what should have been expected. In fact, even you've mentioned here and on the look aheads, Adam Mata said he thought Jokic would be sort of not passive, but not shoot the ball as often, have a lower usage rate, but be extremely efficient. He's averaging 14 shots a game. That's the lowest he's averaged since 2017-18. And
I have
Denver
the
is a plus
same
20.
thing. I have the same thing in my notes. That same note. And just to add to it, second lowest per minute field goal attempts of his career. So since he was a rookie, kind of insane.
Also hasn't hit a three this year. I mean, he has, but he's shooting it terribly from three and has gotten him up. So like maybe if you're pointing to passivity or whatever, like he's there's a large percentage for him of his shots have been threes despite them not going in. The typical stuff is happening with him on the court, plus 20.2. But the Nuggets are plus 5.8 per 100 with Jokic off. So that's it. Again, we'll just say now, and then so we don't have to say it again, even though I probably will. Small sample, caveats, blah, blah, blah. But the idea that this is a better Denver bench than we've seen so far has held up because the Nuggets have been not just like treading water, but actually good without Jokic on the floor. I'd imagine that'll come down a little bit, but just breaking even would be spectacular based on a historical precedent there. Got to ask you about Cam Johnson. To me, he's kind of just been a guy out there. That was my major impression of him. What are your thoughts there? Is this an adjustment period? Is this just something about his game that's different from Michael Porter Jr.?
Who needs an adjustment period playing next to Nikola Jokic?
That's the question, really right? Everything should be easier.
I think he's gonna figure it out. He's gone, like the way that his hierarchy of offense has changed over the past few years. This is sort of night and day from a lot of the stuff that Brooklyn was doing with him last year. I think he will ultimately be fine. And also all that matters is that the Nuggets saved all that sweet tax money, which is just what's equally important. Look, the other thing, you mentioned the depth, and by the way, they have the second best bench point differential in the league per 100 possessions right now. That is not something that we sit here and ever say about the Nuggets, I feel, 4 games into a season. Maybe we have, and I'm just misremembering. That's huge. Jamal Murray looking more like Jamal Murray out of the gate for a lot of the time. That's been huge for them as well. The other guy that's really impressed me, still you look at it, it's like, it'll be cool if he shot more threes. Like, man, Peyton Watson in this regime, like they're plugging more minutes elsewhere. And you mentioned the time without Jokic. I know this will come down 60% on twos and 43% on threes when Jokic isn't on the court. I will have to see how that holds up against some stiffer competition. But if you're here as the Nuggets, Grant, and you're looking at this and you're saying, this is how Cam Johnson has played thus far, aren't you feeling pretty good about, like, yeah, you can look at the schedule and say, right, we lost to the Warriors, then we beat up on a bunch of teams that we should have beaten. And even the Minnesota game without Ant, when I watched the beginning, I was like, oh no, this is going to be like a weird night. They ended up pulling it out. It was fine.
Yeah.
So you beat 3 teams you should have. I still feel really, really good about the Nuggets. A lot of Denver media, Nuggets fans, had said this is the deepest team that's ever been assembled around Nikola Jokic. And I think that already, just a handful of games into the season, you could probably comfortably sit here and say, yeah, I don't know what the alternative selection would be.
Which is funny because there's like 2 to 4 playable bodies off the bench, and that's kind of it. And that, just by their standards in the past, that gets it done.
Tim Hardaway Jr. I never thought there would have been like at this point, any sort of 4 or 5 game stretch where he's hovering around like 50% from 3. They kind of just needed that guy to come in, and they're still not a high volume 3-point shooting team. But look, between him and the 3-point champion to be, Aaron Gordon, they kind of just like helping you space the floor as you go through whatever this Cam Johnson stretch is.
One point of it's in red on my sheet, so it's kind of that's how I'm color coding the, like, hey, look out potentials. They're 5th in defense when I put these together a couple of days ago, so let's just call it a top 10 defense. That's with opponents shooting 32.7% from 3, so that'll come up. And they're giving up a lot of threes. Opponents are getting up the 7th most per 100 possessions against Denver. The other thing is they're not defending the rim well. They're limiting shots, but opponents are shooting like 74% at the rim. That's been kind of baked into the Denver experience in years past. But some of the under the hood defensive stuff is, I think, a potential problem. But like, that's just, Denver's not going to be defined by its defense anyway. That's just possibly, given the quality or lack of quality of competition so far, something to flag to see if this start cools off. I don't think it'll be because Cam Johnson continues to not, shoot 40% from the field and is getting up like 6 shots a game. It'll be just because some of the defensive stuff is a little more problematic than it's been so far.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just wondering, do you think some of their top units, just when you have Christian Brown, if Peyton Watson's going to play a little more, Aaron Gordon, of course, I wonder if just their core units, like maybe their top, by the end of the year, like 2 or 3 lineups, it's, they're defending at a top 10 defensive pace. Anyway,
and that's all that'll matter is how good are the 5 guys for them, more so than most other teams. Like, if you can put a passable defensive lineup on the floor, that's going to be enough, assuming Johnson plays a little better. Gordon really is just, Gordon's not a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 11 3-point shooter, but between last year and how he started this year, like, that might just be, we might need to adjust our expectations for like how well he's going to shoot it and how much of a spacing value add he might be now. So the offense is going to be great. It's just, do you get like a number 15 defensive rating, out of your most used like playoff or crunch time unit? I think that's very achievable given the personnel.
The one final point of contention I have with this team: no Jonas Valanciunas, Nikola Jokic minutes in the regular season yet. What's going on here? I'm upset.
Is that right? I thought they were going to go to that more often. That's missed opportunity for sure.
They do have the 131.7 offensive rating when Jonas Valanciunas is on the court without Nikola Jokic. And that's just, I don't want to boil it down to that, but that is one of the biggest differences of this team, is that the drop-off in steadiness from Jokic to his backup is as narrow as it's ever been. And we didn't get into this enough, but you did mention how he's taking fewer shots and how his job overall just seems just a little bit easier. How big of a deal is that when you're talking about this as a playoff team? I think that this is look, his numbers, he's getting triple doubles in every game, so he will still factor preeminently into the MVP discussion. But if this becomes a year to where it's Nikola Jokic doesn't need to finish in the top 2 of MVP voting for the Nuggets to be a 3 seed, a 2 seed in the Western Conference, doesn't it just, I don't know, the idea, this is stupid, but the idea of Nikola Jokic going through a regular season to averaging like 33 and 34 minutes a game rather than 36 or 37, feels like a really, really big deal. And maybe we'll get more games as the season goes on where it's, like Nikola Jokic didn't have to play a bunch in that fourth quarter.
That to me is always the goal with a player like him, or even just your older stars, is like, can you be up 25 in the third quarter and his night's just over? Like that to me is like the ideal kind of the load management stand-in, right? Like, maybe you can play the second night of the back-to-back if we only needed you for 26 minutes or whatever because we blew a team out. I think too, like, yes, as a preservative thing, it's great if the lift is lighter during the season, because when you get to the postseason, at some point he sort of just will have to be the be all end all, which is like what, that's the job when you're as good as he is. I also think he wants to play this way, which I don't think, you know what I mean? Like he's always been the most reluctant shooter among elite scorers that there's ever been. So like if he gets to just kind of facilitate more, I think he's probably happier about that. So that's kind of a two-way win there. It's just, he's taxed less severely and he kind of gets to do what he wants to do, which is nice.
Whose offensive start is more concerning for you, very quickly, Christian Brown or Cam Johnson?
Cam Johnson, just because like he's replacing a guy whose entire value was offensive, and Brown is just kind of,
still shooting fine inside the arc. The 3-point percentage though is always just weird with him. So the final question, Grant, is this Nuggets team real? This is a tough one. I know.
I'm gonna go a pretty firm yes on that one. We liked them before the season. What's not to like? You got Jokic.
I mean, they're phonies. Don't speak on my behalf. I think that the start is completely fake.
Tear them down. All your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass. Plus, score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code POINTGAME. That's code POINTGAME. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21-plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto-renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Let's talk about the San Antonio Spurs again, except it's not just a Wemby conversation. We talked about Wemby last week, but the Spurs, as we're recording this, Grant, have they lost a game? They have not lost a game.
It blows my mind that this 5-0 start is the first one they've ever had. How is that possible? That
Tim Duncan was the most overrated player in NBA history.
You could only count on Tim Duncan 4 out of every 5 nights. That's what everybody's always said about him. He just doesn't show up. Were you thrown by that? I couldn't believe it. I assumed they'd had like a 9-0 or a 10-0 start at some point.
I would have assumed that they had multiple of those, just looking back at the teams that they fielded.
It's ridiculous. Well, you got so we've talked a lot about the Spurs and Wemby. We can definitely do more of that. I just think, like, of course, they have the number 1 defensive rating per cleaning the glass. I don't think it's quite as good if you factor in garbage time, but just for everything we discussed already about what he does to an opposing offense, like, it's just are they going to be number 1 all season? Is everybody like, are the Thunder going to get back up there?
I don't know, because
it's crazy.
Wemby he's like a defensive system unto himself, and the starting unit, Grant, opponents are actually shooting 39.5% against the Spurs' starting 5, but only 41.3% on twos, including 45.7% at the rim and 40.6% from floater range.
That's unthinkable.
That is insanity. And that's like, yes, that is Wemby driven, but also having Steph Castle's a monster, and so that's going to certainly help. The other thing that I think has really helped this team to try and deviate away from Wemby, like, what is the way to go here? Right. Dylan Harper I know the shooting percentage isn't quite there yet, but is probably their best driver when you're just looking at the passes he has thrown out of those things. I know De'Aaron Fox has not played yet, of course. That's been huge for them. And the other element here is just when Luke Cornett is on the floor, with like the stuff with Luke Cornett and Wemby is fun, But when Luke Cornett is on the floor without Wemby, they are plus 21.2 per 100 and a 122.5 offensive rating. And just kind of to that point, I think that Mitch Johnson's done a really nice job of this might get into the question of, okay, I know they don't have Fox. I know they don't have Jeremy Sohan right now, but it might get into the question of, are they a little bit top heavier than we thought? I just feel like he's done a really good job in those secondary units of stocking them with starters to ensure that they're going to be able to tread water or make those minutes together. And just Devin Vassell, who's been really good to start the year. That's our guy. Devin Vassell validating everything we thought about him. The minutes with no Wemby, but at least two of him, Castle, and Harper, like they've by and large been really good, especially the Vassell and Harper minutes. And so I like the way that Mitch Johnson has kind of futzed and fiddled with the rotation patterns. I'm just wondering if, I know De'Aaron Fox is going to come back, but is like the rotation a little bit top heavier than because they're not short on guards at the moment, really, when you're thinking about it. So what does that do to the rotation? Is it, we're going to see a trickle-down effect of Julian Champagnie getting fewer minutes? He really can't, because I think you need his wing presence, but I'm very curious to see how he handles that. To this point, though, I like what he's done during a lot of the non-Wemby minutes. That was my long-winded way of just saying those like eight words.
That has to be noted, because it just strip it all the way down, and they're basically break even with Wembanyama off the floor. So cleaning the glass is plus 0.01, which is when, given the youth and given how much of the shot creation is being handled by inexperienced players, that's kind of incredible. I think Harper and Castle have both wildly exceeded my high expectations for them. Harper in particular, as we got into the season and we saw some preseason sample, which there wasn't a ton of, you did start to hear from a lot of people, oh, he knows how to play, or he's ready, and all that stuff. Like, he has so much craft and is so comfortable, like physically attacking the basket, and just he has such a broad variety of finishes. I've watched a ton of the Spurs, so like I have a lot of thoughts on them. He seems like he's going to be a rookie, and he hasn't shot it well from three so far either. Maybe he won't.
50% on catch and shoots, though. 5 of 10 on
which is great. I mean, he should have the ball a ton. But yeah. So off the dribble is maybe more important, but his ability to get downhill and compromise the defense as a driver, and he's a really, really good, he's a legitimate point guard. Like, he sees the floor like a true point guard, creatively sees the pass that's like the second easiest pass to see. It's not, he's like moved past the automatic strong side corner if it's the guy's left open. Like, all the basics are totally, like, he does that, just by rote, but like he sees the second pass and the third pass and creates he's legitimate. I think he's going to be a positively impactful player as a rookie. And Castle, the shooting is what it is. Like, he is getting them up enough, but there are definitely stretches where the game plan is to leave him alone and dare him to shoot, because that's a good possession for the opposing defense. But he brings so much defensively, and he brings so much attacking the basket that he's been a major positive too. Here's the question. Would you feel better about the Spurs right now if De'Aaron Fox and his contract were not on this roster, and you just had that flexibility and that space and what you might be able to do with it to address what you're talking about, which is maybe the lack of a wing or a forward that's like a dead-eye shooter or a two-way guy with size? Because I think Harper and Castle have been so impressive that it's a discussion you kind of have to have. Maybe it's a good problem, but it's one that needs discussed.
Right. I think I would. So you would need to tell me, who are you replacing De'Aaron Fox with?
Just call it like the flexibility. So yeah, unless I give you, I guess it's not fair if I don't give you a name.
Right, but even if you were telling me it was I'd rather have De'Aaron Fox, because one of the things you mentioned with Harper is the ball is going to need to be in his hands a ton right now. You're still going to want to see it in his hands a ton. But him and De'Aaron Fox, just based off the way that Dylan Harper has played, some of the decisions like he's made off the catch, if you can put him in more of those situations where De'Aaron Fox is the focal point, or it's Dylan Harper is going to attack from the second side, that's, I think, going to optimize Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox together. Now, where I think you might get into issues can you play all three of those guys together? That's a fair question, but I don't know if you need to answer it. I think you've shown that you can play two of these guys together already without an issue. Maybe now you have, if Fox and Castle struggle together, you do have the outlet of, like, well, Castle and Harper like have more of this inbuilt chemistry and familiarity now. I'm actually more excited to see the things that they'll be able to do offensively, and maybe it makes Victor Wembanyama's job even harder, to where the paint touches that we all like, does he have to like not even work as hard to get them now too? What I would be concerned about, aside from the typical, oh, the 3 guard stuff, 2 of them are questionable shooters, what happens to Wemby offensively if he's going to be, like, with Castle right now, it's not as big of a deal, but if there's a Harper and Fox unit and that becomes a core lineup for you, does Victor Wembanyama, does he get marginalized at all in that? Where what people have loved what he's done this season, but like, is he going to turn into more of kind of a, I don't want to call him a space in place guy during those minutes, and that's fine for some possessions for sure, but you don't want to see that, just because, one, this is so much fun what we're watching right now from him, Grant. It's just like insane. But also, two, the variety that he's shown on offense, I think, is what's been more valuable than anything.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think this is a little bit separate from the how do you fit these 3 guards together. And my short answer to that would just be, I don't know how, but it can't be by reducing. What I don't want is Harper to play fewer than the 26 minutes he's played so far this season. And I don't want Castle to play less than the 31 and change he's played so far. So however you need to make that happen to get Fox his minutes, it's going to pull from McLaughlin. It's going to pull from Champagnie. It might pull from Harrison Barnes. Great. Just don't reduce Harper and Castle's minutes, is one. But two, with Wemby, still up in the air as far as like, what are you offensively, right? The answer has kind of been like everything, I guess, so far, because he's kind of canned the high volume threes. He's getting to the line more effectively. But to me right now, I think he feels like an evolutionary, like Giannis type player, where the goal is to get him going downhill in space, because he's able to change direction. He's able to finish over the top. He's able to extend, like, all this stuff. To me, like, forget the, oh my God, he's 7'5" and he's going to shoot 12 threes a game, which is kind of what things looked like last year. Like, if you're trying to project forward, what's his role? I think the downhill on ball attacking, to me right now, looks like the future for him. And how does adding a 3rd guard that needs the ball to the mix affect that? Because right now, like, I just, his ability to attack, we may just get to a point where it looks like how Giannis gets defended, where everybody is pulled in and everybody's shading to him, and the 3-point shooting around him becomes critical. And this weird setup where now you have 3 point guards playing together, none of whom are major threats from 3. That's weird, right? So Wemby's good enough to adjust, but if it's the case that, well, the best offensive version of the Spurs is Wemby on the ball in a space floor attacking downhill like Giannis does, then things get weird, right? Like, the pieces don't quite fit there. So that'll be something I'm monitoring going forward. It's like, it's great that this is a thing you have to contend with, because one, Wemby has this dimension that is new and very cool and effective, and two, you've got all these good on-ball guards that you've got to figure out what to do with. Like,
right.
It's a good space to be in, but there are scenarios where it gets clunky in a hurry if this is what Wemby's going to be, which who knows, right? Maybe there's like a 3rd evolutionary step for him.
I think if it becomes a concern, or I just feel like they will go out of their way to ensure that it never happens like that. And we've even kind of seen it with, look at Devin Vassell's usage this year, where 77+% of his baskets are coming off assists, which is just a number that is far greater than it was last year. You've seen the way that, I think, I'll look at it this way. I think De'Aaron Fox may be the guy that needs to make the biggest adjustment of anyone. And even I say that, the way he played off of Domas Sabonis in San Antonio, or in Sacramento, excuse me, I just don't know that I feel like it's an issue. I know that we haven't seen him play yet with this group, but after watching the Spurs this year, I'm kind of just like, no, I don't think it's going to be an issue. And if it does become an issue, I don't think it's going to come at the expense of Wembanyama. I think what will happen is it becomes an issue because they've gone out of their way to make sure that Wemby is allowed to be the best possible version of himself. And then you get into the discussion of, okay, well, is there a guard that's the odd man out here? And that's the question we need to have. And right now, based off how they started, it's easy to say, well, it should be Fox. He's paid the most. He's older, hasn't played yet. I want to see it all come together. So it's still a question, but you said this at the top. It's kind of a great problem to have. I've even wondered, I think he's a great player. I actually think he's so critical because of what he could do off the ball. I almost wondered, well, does Devin Vassell become the guy that's the odd man out because they're so heavily invested in these other three?
I think so. We're way out over our skis, or at least I am on Harper. I think Harper might be a better complement to Wembanyama than Fox like right now, just because of what he's able to do as a facilitator. Now, Fox could come in and shoot 40% from three and just unlock the handoff game with Wemby that we haven't really seen, and that'll be wrong. But I had the same thought of like, if Vassell was a 40% shooter for his career instead of like 36 and had higher volume and didn't shoot quite so many pull-up twos and was slightly bigger, he'd be a very different player. But you wouldn't be talking about it with him as like, well, somebody's going to have their minutes cut and Vassell might be it. I think he is someone that especially if Harper or Fox or Castle sort of demonstrate more consistency from three, then I think Vassell does just lose some minutes because he's not a creator like either of those three guys are, and he's not as good a defender as Castle. Few guards are at this point.
Right. But Fox is probably the second best defensively of those three. I think what helps, you mentioned the shooting, though, I think what helps is, right now he's at 40% on 8+ attempts per game.
Yep.
And even
if he holds that, then you can't take his minutes away.
Which is, the other thing, too, that I've been thinking about, by the way, I love the Luke Cornett Wemby minutes that just get sprinkled in, and I know you can't go to that too often because of the way the rest of the backup big rotation set up. They're grabbing 55% of their own misses when they're on the floor together. That is obscene.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of really positive indicators so far, in addition to just 5-0 being the big one.
The other thing I've thought about, this is now too big picture. We need to talk about what we view the Spurs as in the actual. We both hit their under this year, by the way, in terms of full disclosure. But very quickly, does Jeremy Sohan still have a place on this team to you when he comes back from the wrist injury? Because I don't see it officially.
No, I don't think so. I think the offensive limitations he has just are even bigger problems when you have three guys in the backcourt that aren't great shooters and that kind of need the ball. Like Sohan and it's like if you had a spacing center that needed defensive help, sure. But like Wemby is the defense. You don't need another defense-only guy on the floor. That's just a waste,
I think it's safe to say we were both too low on the Spurs coming into the season. But are they real as a contender?
I'm not going contender yet. I'm going like we really made a mistake in not just penciling them into the top 6, right? Like that's as far as I'll go right now. But that all depends on the young guards sustaining this. Which is an if, but I'm just so encouraged by Harper in particular that they should be one of the 6 best teams in the West. They're ahead of the game so far.
I buy them as top 6 now. Yeah, maybe that's a better way to frame it. Would not shock me though if they just end up being top 3.
Could be.
Through Wemby, all things are possible, as you like to say. Our next team, Grant, the Miami Heat. They have had quite the start to the season. They've already used, I think, like 3 or 4 different starting lineups. They've played Orlando, Memphis, the Knicks, the Hornets, and actually just played the Spurs, lost that game. What do you make of... So there's so many different things that you would have to figure out whether you want to buy or sell with them. I kind of want to start, what have you thought about the change in how they have played offensively this year from years past?
Well, a little bit of deja vu, right? Because this is just the Memphis discussion from last season, where right down to... They're last in pick and roll ball handler frequency, last in pick and roll man frequency. They just don't set screens on the ball. Cooper Moorhead, you probably saw this. When Cooper Moorhead put this together, they're averaging 22 pick and roll possessions per 100 through their first 3 games. The lowest mark of the past 13 years was almost double that. So it's an extreme just disregard for the pick and roll and on ball screens, which is what we were talking about with Memphis last year. They spaced the floor. They had a super high isolation frequency, and they timed their cuts and pin down screens. They do set off ball screens to create advantage situations and space the defense out. This matters a little more for the Heat because one of the things that was always wild about Memphis doing that is you have Ja Morant, who's just a really difficult player to guard when you set a screen for him on the ball. The Heat don't have that guy, especially with Tyler Hero out. So it makes sense.
Norman Powell too now, apparently.
Right. It makes sense to take a crack at this when like Davion Mitchell is not like a conventional offensive point guard. Jaime Jaquez has been on the ball a ton because he can't shoot, and most of the rest of the roster can. So he's not a conventional facilitator in that sense either. So shocker, I love this. I love that they're trying something weird, and that it makes more sense for this roster than it did with Memphis, which is kind of the last team that went this like far off the map in terms of just we're going to play offense differently. They've had 2 games with a 130 offensive rating or better, which for the Heat is like just, I don't know. I didn't look it up, but did they have 2 games with a 130 offensive rating all of last year? Probably, but like not that many more. So the results have been pretty spectacular. The transition frequency is way up. I'm sure you've got something similar to all this too, especially off live rebounds. They were close to last in overall transition frequency and running off live rebounds last year. They're 6th and 13th respectively this year. So more pace, more space, fewer screens. It's all been very fun. I don't have a lot more to say than that.
To the pace part, that I think is absolutely real. 16.3% of their points so far have come on the break, and that number was higher before they ran into Wemby and the Spurs.
All these numbers are wrecked. They were way more impressive before that Spurs game. So,
but that's still 5th. And so they have not been. And so last year, just as some context, they were 21st in the share of their points coming on the break. The year before that, 23-24, they were 22nd. The year before that, 22-23, they were 27th. And you mentioned transition frequency. Can you guess, or do you know, the last time they have ranked in the top 10 of transition frequency as a team?
I would assume it was when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh were on the team.
It was 2013, 2014. And that's actually, honestly, I thought we would have had to go further back for them to be there. I'm not going to lie. And they're 5th right now in doing things like that. So what I'm monitoring here, people have made a huge deal about the screening thing. Like, by the way, they've had some good wins this year. Like beating the Knicks, that was a good win. We don't know what Orlando is just yet, but like that's a gritty team. I wonder if the Heat are benefiting from just what happened with the Grizzlies, where teams didn't really know how to defend it yet, and it was just so like eclectic that they didn't really know what to do with it. With that being said, what I do think we're discounting is they could start using more ball screens to vary up the offense once their best passer or second best passer, depending on how you feel about Kasper Siakis, is playing games for them. Like, it's not outside the realm of, and you're also probably going to have to slow things down for Tyler Hero a little bit. He hasn't been afforded the opportunity to play this way, but now he's coming back from an injury and doesn't have a ton of experience playing with this team. There is a chance it could undermine it, but you're not going to use Jaime Jaquez Jr. on the ball the same way you would Tyler Hero when Jaime Jaquez Jr. can't shoot. You're not going to use...
That makes Jaquez way less valuable if you can't have him bring the ball up and initiate,
correct.
Right?
That's going to hurt. It does, but it could be interesting. I think it helps that Tyler Hero can also play off the ball. So when someone's just like, if you want Jaquez, don't do it all the time. But I think that they have, since a lot of the comps have come back to the Grizzlies, I'm wondering don't you think they have more avenues to explore than that Grizzlies team did if they wanted to? This doesn't have to be being eccentric, being like anomalous on offense doesn't have to be their all everything the way it felt like it was for that Memphis team for the first 75% of the season.
Well, again, like with Memphis, it was always, it worked until it didn't, and yet it always seemed like a strange choice for a team that had Morant. It feels more with it. Like I agree that there's definitely going to be room for more conventional offensive sets once the Heat are whole, and that's when you have Powell full time, when you have Hero full time. Like you're just going to want to run some more conventional action sometimes with those guys. I think they can. Yeah, maybe there is room just for more to do both, right? For when the Heat are healthy. One kind of, again, like what does this look like if they're not shooting 41% from three and almost 43% on non-corner threes? Like how much of this offense are we like drooling over if they're shooting league average from three? Probably still talking about it just because it's unusual, but I don't think the numbers are anywhere near as good if we're just having like what you'd expect from three for this team. So that's just like sorry to like let some air out of the balloon. But that's kind of what I'm going to be monitoring is, does all this ISO driving and like catch on the move stuff look as good as a process if the results are not bolstered by unsustainable 3-point shooting? Something to think about.
Well, they still do. They're fifth in defense right now, which they could fall back on.
And that's the
as
given,
well.
right? We know the Heat are going to defend, so that's why this offense matters so much.
I will say, please, Eric Spoelstra, fire the Khalil Ware Bam Adebayo minutes into the sun. I don't want to see
like
anymore. I don't like him, and it's weirdly feels like it's marginal. Like Bam, it maybe helps him on defense, but marginalizes him on offense, or just like messes with both of the bigs' usage too much. Bam this season during the Ware Adebayo minutes is shooting like 23.1% on twos is what I have in my notes. And it's not doing what it's supposed to defensively. They have a 129 defensive rating together while scoring 109 points per 100 possessions on offense. It's only been like a 40-something minute sample size, but last year it was just I understand that you want to play them together and what it allows Bam to do specifically defensively, but I don't like that's going to contribute at points to Bam shooting too many threes, maybe the way that the Heat are playing right now, as well as people want to see him not taking as many 3-point attempts. There's a lot of questions on offense, but I also, to put some air back in the balloon, Tyler Hero hasn't played and Norman Powell has missed 2 games for this team. So the fact that they're here is kind of a pretty big deal. We did identify them, or at least I did in the preseason, just, they might be sneaky deep. Some of the names that I mentioned is them being like Pele Larson has not done a ton for them this year. But like Davion Mitchell, you kind of mentioned him that's that you have the baseline of what I would say is with Wiggins, with what Hawk has been able to do this year. Now, how does it change when Hero's back in the fold? If you believe they have a pretty high defensive baseline, they don't need to be second in 3-point efficiency. They don't need to have a top 5, top 8 offense or whatever it is. I think the question is, do you think that they can have an above average offense with this group? And I feel like the answer is yes. I might have more questions about, can the defense sustain if you're playing Tyler Hero and Norman Powell a bunch of minutes together, which I assume is going to be the plan.
Right. That was one of the things coming in is there felt like there was going to be some necessary offense defense trade-offs just depending on who they decided to play. I like that you set the can they or can't they line for offense kind of at like 15th or just league average, because I do think we need to throttle back expectations a little bit, but that would be a pretty big step forward if the offense was break even and maybe this defense really is top 10. That's how you get certainly into the top 6 in the East. I guess my question for you, because you've been higher on them than I was, can this be a top 4 team in the East? Like, does that depend too much on the offense sustaining for more than the 5 games they've played?
Honestly, I think this is the one that I don't think it's real, to the extent of, are the Heat better than we thought? Sure. Are the Heat a top 4, top 6 team in the East? That's the one I'm not ready to say is real yet, in part because I just think Cleveland and New York are going to be better at some point. I would say the same thing about Atlanta too, and Orlando as well. But what I think is just, you mentioned it, the offense would have to sustain at this rate. And look, maybe they're just a better shooting team. Like, what if Simone Fontecchio is just going to have a bounce back year? And if Norman Powell's healthy and Tyler Hero's healthy, this team is kind of stocked with shooters. And if you can create enough space, because look, the value of Bam Adebayo, by the way, if teams respect him even a little bit at his position from behind the 3-point line, that's why the Davion Mitchell lanes are open. That's why the Jaime Jaquez Jr. lanes are open too. But a top 5 off, like that, I'm going to sell the idea of a top 5 off. It just seems a little bit of a stretch. But if it's not, copycat league, Grant, everyone's kind of out on what Memphis tried last year. And even though they tried it, you already kind of said this, they had the conventional lead ball handler in John Moran. I think Tyler Hero's better in that respect than people give him credit, but it's in the same vein as kind of Devin Booker with the Suns, to where they can do it, but you're not necessarily optimizing your offense that way. If this Heat team winds up being even top 10 in offense, man, there's going to be a trickle-down effect across the league for sure.
Yeah, I would sell the sustainability of this offense as much as anything because of the shooting. The 3-point shooting is unsustainable, and the numbers are very different if they're not making everything. I am not, but I will buy being interested. Like I definitely am going to watch more Heat than I did last year, which was not a lot because that was a slog all season. But you've always got my attention if you're going to get a little weird on offense. So if any, as much as anything, just to see like what a defense is, what's the solve going to be here? Like, because Memphis didn't really show it to us for long enough to establish here are the principles you throw at this offense, right? So as much as anything, what's the counter to this? Because there will be one. And that's another thing to keep in mind is like you said at the top, half of the effectiveness of this approach might just be in teams are not prepared for it because you don't see it more than in this case, like twice a year. So like, I think that's another thing I'm going to be really interested to monitor.
Can I ask you I'm just asking questions here.
Just
so
ask
I ask you one. Who's more important to this team long-term, Khalil Ware or Nikola Jovic?
Can we just wait until the end of the year and see which of them starts more games and base the answer on that?
I'm asking you this question now, Grant.
I think it's Ware, and that's while acknowledging it's just a floor ceiling thing. He's been super inconsistent. He just night to night, it's been hard to know what you're going to get from him. But the best version of him is more valuable to me than the best version of Jovic. So that's a little bit of a cop out, but Jovic is the more reliable guy, I would say. But I think if Ware becomes what he can become, then I'd rather have that guy.
I think I'm officially, and I probably would have done this last season too, I'm putting my stamp on Jovic here. Give me this someone who I think there's more playmaking to plumb from him, and just if he hasn't even had the best start to the season. You look up, he's shooting 40% from three, and that's the team percentage from three is an outlier. But you dig into some of the, like, Andrew Wiggins is shooting 33%. That's kind of what, like, Norman Powell's done this before, and Tyler Hero, great shooter. I want both of those guys, by the way, Powell and Hero, to come back because one, I hate injuries, but two, what does this offense look like? How does it change? How does it sustain with them in the fold? Our next team, Grant, can you talk to me about the Oklahoma City Thunder? They're still rebuilding. We're hoping that they exit it pretty soon. They might have won. Maybe they'll win a championship. Oh, that's right. They already won one. Are they? Are they for real?
Fake. 2 double overtimes. You needed 2 double overtimes for wins. You've only won 2 games by double digits. Lame. These guys are paper tigers. They're not real.
So I think was it you and I that had this discussion about approaching things from the perspective of I want to poke holes in what we think is just true. And so the reflexive answer is, okay, OKC has dealt with injuries and they still have one of the best net ratings in the league. They're fine. Like, they're real. And they are real, but I was trying to just find some things to be concerned about. And so I have some things that we could talk about if you're ready for it.
Is one of them that they can't make threes?
It is. They are shooting 28.8% on wide open threes. The other thing is that they are 19th in half-court offense. All of this is presented with the fact that they have players missing time again. J-Dub is yet to play. Chet has missed their past 2 games. So again, this is something that I wasn't concerned about because they're going to shoot better on wide open threes. I know he wasn't a huge part of the actual title run last year, but Isaiah Joe coming back, I think will be big for he's a really good regular season player.
20 off the bench, no problem. His first game back. It's super fun for everybody when they could just throw a guy out there that can do that.
What I do find, if we were to focus on something, is they are dead last in transition frequency so far, and that includes after grabbing a live rebound, and they're 26th in the percentage of their points coming in transition. If you are OKC and your half-court offense is going to be rickety beyond Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that would be a potential problem. Mm-hmm. You can say that it'll get remedied when J-Dub comes back because he will grab the ball and he will go, but he's come back from a wrist injury on his shooting hand. We don't know what that's like. We don't know what that's going to look like. Is there a concern level there for you at all, or do you counter that with something else?
No, I think if you're looking for actual concerns, it has to be kind of what we saw them run into last season, where the half-court offense does get sloggy, and it becomes, can SGA draw a foul, and it becomes, can this be one of the nights when J-Dub is good enough as a creator to make stuff happen in the half-court? And so, yeah, that is the issue still. And so if Wallace hadn't missed a game and Caruso hadn't missed time, maybe there'd be more steals, maybe there'd be more transition frequency because of that kind of thing. Maybe they could just ratchet up the chaos more. Maybe they're just not maybe they know they don't need to do that yet. They don't need to play it hard enough to create all the chaos that leads to easy baskets. But that is what you would focus on. I think as a counter to that, suddenly, and people that were paying attention last year maybe aren't surprised by this, they have a guy in AJ Mitchell that is also a pretty good half court creator if you do run into some trouble. So just conjuring him out of a late draft pick and being able to get 18 plus from him and good spot up shooting and like really good for what they need him to do, facilitation, feels unfair, but he's been really good. And he is in theory like one of the fixes for the problem that you're talking about, where if things get bogged down, you can put him out there with Shea, with J-Dub, with Chet, and suddenly you've got 4 guys that can make stuff happen from a standstill. Maybe that alleviates some of the half-court clunkiness, right? Like just having him as a lever to pull gives the Thunder, a team filled with advantages, like one more.
And when he is playing without Shea, AJ Mitchell without Shea, the Thunder are a plus 5.3 per 100 possessions. That's actually worse than their overall net rating without Shea this season. But I think what he's done is he's create havoc, like when he's able to get inside the arc, and the Thunder are shooting almost 55% from 2 during those minutes, and he's going to tee up a lot of that stuff. I also did want to ask you, before he ended up missing the past 2 games, Chet Holmgren again, man. Just kind of like finishing through contact better. Those drives. There's what he's got
some new stuff. Some new stuff. It's pretty exciting.
This is just I'm not going to bring up. I will default to J-Dub on who is the second best player on this team still, but we're doing it again. We did this last season. I'm doing it again now. It's Chet Holmgren. If he stays healthy, is just such an anomaly for what he's able to do on both the offense and the defensive end. And that factors into all of this too, to where it's just, you can be a little bit concerned about the offense, but Chet Holmgren has missed 40% of their games so far. J-Dub is yet to play. I guess if you wanted to nitpick, their schedule has been, since facing Houston, and even the Indiana game was tough because you just faced that team in the finals. So you guys kind of know the ins and outs of each other. And then you go and you blast the Hawks. That we thought they were going to be a good team. Dallas has a lot of big bodies. I mean, the Kings aren't a real basketball team. The Wizards, Keyshawn George out there making his claim for sophomore most improved player. So you could nitpick and say the schedule has not been brutal. But when you look at who has missed time, including a Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso, this defense is not the best in the league anymore, apparently, because Wemby exists. I guess the question here, we know the Thunder are contenders, but it's, do you buy this team? Maybe it won't be easy, but as of right now, what was their over-under set at? We both went over, or did you go? It was like
I went under. I went under because I only thought they'd win 62 games. I think it was like 62 and a half or something, right?
I'm going to ask you, will this team win more than 63 or more games this season? That's what we have to buy or sell. I'm going to buy it because I already did. But
yeah, I mean, I think I have to buy it now. But then the question becomes, is this how it's going to be all year, where they're just never at full strength for both deliberately and because guys are nicked up? Like they're never, they're not going to push guys back. They're going to give players nights off after a finals run. And this will be what they are, which again is undefeated. Or if you really want to bang the over, do you say they're like basically playing with one hand tied behind their back? What happens when they can hit you with either one? And then do they just win 70 plus? Like, right? Like that's, I don't know which way to go with this, but if they get to like 10, 12, 15 and 0 or something like that, then we got to start talking about 74 and 8, right?
Yeah, I would say like 75 and 7 seems more accurate. But yeah, this is just the fact that they have one. They're a known commodity, but they're also just, given the context of who has missed games and how some of them have consecutive double overtimes to open the season, you would think that you might feel just like a teensy bit worse about this team. I do not, though, for anyone who was wondering. Next team, this is not a squad either of us would have predicted we'd be talking about in this podcast. Your Chicago Bulls, Grant.
One of us, Dan. I mean, what was the over-under, 34 and a half? So
didn't we both hit the over, but you called it your best bet.
Yeah. I best betted it. I mean, so let's see, 4-0. They got 78 left. They only need to win 31 more games. Pretty easy. Let's start with the schedule to get a little more serious about this. They beat Detroit, who has kind of been a mess sporadically, especially offensively, because nobody can do anything besides Cade Cunningham. They won at Orlando, arguably an even bigger offensive mess for stretches this season, and they were also playing the Magic were second night of a back-to-back. Beat Atlanta, wildly disappointing team so far. Beat the Kings, who, in addition to Dan Favale's words, are not an actual basketball team. The Kings were also playing the second night of a back-to-back. The schedule, Dan, has been suspect. That said, I don't care. They banked these 4 wins. They're going over, no problem. It's just, I didn't really imagine that I would be like the Bulls guy this year, but I'm so ready to embrace it and just to be ecstatic when they win 39 games. Can't wait. Really enjoying this.
Where do we think Trey Jones finishes on the MVP ballot is my question.
Top 10 probably. He is, I mean, I've banged this drum a couple times. The shooting has been preposterous. Ayo Dosunmu, Kevin Huerter, Modest Buzelis, Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and Trey Jones are all over 50% from the field. Vuce, Dosunmu, Jones, and Williams are all over 50% from 3. Opponents, Dan, do you want to guess? This is unfair.
Oh, I know. I already know.
Low. What are opponents shooting from 3?
32.
Too high. 26.2%.
That is so. They're actually. Do you know what they're shooting on wide open threes? Is that part of your notes? Opponents?
No, but corner threes, I got a corner 3 stat. So give me the wide open threes. Bulls opponents are shooting what on wide open threes?
I'm going to say, so I'm going to set the over under at 29.7%. Better.
I'm going under.
Yeah, 27.4.
Yeah. 19.4% on corner threes. 19.4% on corner threes. So that number 4 defensive rating, not sure how sustainable that
hold on.
Yeah.
Now, I think what is happening here is that the Bulls are choosing which of the players are shooting threes, and the way that they are forcing the ball and guiding it into those. They do to their defense. They limit corner threes at least so far, don't they? So, but yeah, this is just
why they should let teams shoot as many as they want. They're only making 2 out of 10.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong. Yeah, they are. So they're 6th in their corner 3-point percent, like frequency of threes coming from the corners. You're right. They should jack that up. They're
let
there.
Let them shoot more. They can't. Clearly, nobody can make them against the Bulls because they're choosing the right players to leave open in the corners. Let's do positives, though. They're 4-0. Their offense is middle of the pack. Josh Giddey looks pretty good. He's making his threes still. If that's a real thing, if Giddey's going to make threes, Dan's hand is up. Would you like to ask a question?
You mentioned that their offense is middling, is starting with the positives. Is that a positive? Because with this group, shouldn't they, looking at the personnel, wouldn't you have guessed that they would have an offense-first identity and so be middle of the road in that while your defense? Okay, cool. If we're talking about Jedi 3-point defense, or do you really, you would have to believe in, there's something here with the defense for us to say middle of the road offensively. That's rock solid. Grant has a follow-up question.
I have a comment. I don't have a question. I have a comment. I think maybe the better way to phrase it is that number 15 offensive rating feels a lot more sustainable and real than the number 4 defensive rating. I guess to say it's a positive is probably a little bit too much. But yeah, they might even be better than that. Again, I went through the numbers. Everybody's making half their shots or better. But it's easier to believe that this team will, especially like Modest Buzelis, we haven't really talked about him. He looks like someone that's going to be a pretty dangerous downhill weapon who might also be at least league average from 3 already. So that's kind of a new arrow in the quiver, and he should just play more than he did last year too, going as a sophomore. So like there's real, I don't know, like viable looks here offensively for the Bulls in ways that like there just aren't on the defensive end. So maybe that's the way to frame it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we could say that Vooch will calm down, but weren't we saying that for pretty much all of last year? And he eventually did, but it ended up still being a
right. He might just be a 40% guy. I don't know. Like you could have, like late career, and for him, it's very late in the career to be having one of the best season ever he's had shooting the ball last year. But isn't it easier to believe like, oh, he's just improved at like a standstill skill than it is to, like if he were, I don't know, it's like ridiculous to even think of it. But if like suddenly he's just great off the dribble or had crazy, like he's just, the athleticism is going to go. Maybe the shot is actually something that at this late stage of the career you can get better at. It's like one of the only things you can improve at. I don't know. Just looking for reasons to be positive about my Bulls.
I did hope that this team would run more, and I don't know how much of that is a function of, okay, we need to see what Kobe White looks like, but I thought that they have not really been out in transition a ton. They're still kind of fun to watch, but they were a lot more aesthetically pleasing to me last season. But maybe that says more about me. But it's also funny. You could be watching their broadcast. They're like, oh, we think Billy Donovan's going to bring in Kevin Huerter to get some size on the court. And it just speaks to the types of lineups they're running, which is just so fun. Did you mention the Patrick Williams renaissance? Bargain.
It's been a sight to behold. Great value contract, right? Just that the Bulls knew that they needed to lock him down at that number so that nobody else would poach him.
By the way, the fact that they're here too and their starting five is just getting trucked during its minutes on the court, there's so much about this team that doesn't make sense right now that I almost just want to buy them as a top 6 team in the East.
I was going to ask you if you've adjusted your priors. I think I have my answer. I have not adjusted my priors. They're going to win, but this is a great start. They can win 40 games, I think, and maybe a couple more. And maybe who knows in the East? Maybe that is top 6. Well, but I don't feel very differently about them than I did before any games were played.
I think are the Bulls for real question needs to be: are the Bulls going to be an above 500 team this season?
I mean, yeah. I just said they might win 42. So I guess the answer.
Oh, I thought you said 40, and I was going to say that is less than 500.
It's the range realistically is 38. Like, is it 40? What if I said 44? What if I said 43.5 is the over-under? Would you go over that?
No, I would take the under. I wasn't even going to take 40. You said at 41.5. I'm still going to take the under.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're about where we were on them.
Well, although we're saying all this and Kobe White hasn't played.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. He's maybe his return offsets everybody shooting 50% from the field.
Since we're just asking questions, can I ask you a question?
I'd love it.
What's more likely, Nikola Vucevic gets traded or extended?
Oh my God, extend him. You got to keep this. You got to keep the gang together.
Oh man, our next team. Are they our last team? I think they might be our last team. Break up the Milwaukee Bucks, not because Giannis wants out, but because they won't stop winning basketball games, Grant, including against our teams. WTF?
Right.
Also,
so Giannis is on a tear.
I'm sorry.
Start there.
I was going to say, you could make the argument to trade Giannis because clearly they're better built to beat the Western Conference teams without him. That's all I'll say.
That's pretty obvious. He's been incredible. It just kind of everybody's talking about like, oh, he's different. The passing is different. This, I guess, like he's just as great as ever, basically, to me. And maybe, it's been conspicuous, or it seemed conspicuous because going into this season, it was just like, what is this supporting cast? Just a bunch of minimums, but like watching it play out, there's some logic to it, right? They can put lineups on the floor where everybody is a threat from 3. And they're not a threat to do a whole lot else, with one exception, which we have to talk about. But if you surround Giannis with 4 guys that must be attended to, like just call it Turner, Trent, Taurean Prince, and I'll just say his name because we have to, Ryan Rollins, that's a pretty good setup, just in theory, right? Like you have to shade to Giannis because he's just murdering everybody going downhill. And if guys make enough threes, then there's your offense. I guess maybe... Do you feel like we undervalued, like the names don't knock your socks off, but just the skill sets of the guys that they put around him? Did we not give enough credit to just like the build makes sense in terms of like the types of players, if not the names?
I guess maybe, and they were one of the most efficient 3-point shooting teams last year, but we all kind of had questions about their volume there. I don't know. I mean, I liked Ryan Rollins last year. We talked about him but did you see him coming in and being their second leading scorer, facilitating the crap out of off drives? He's shooting 53% on drives, shooting well from 3. They get Cole Anthony, and Cole Anthony's shooting 72% on drives. Yeah. Grant, that's just, I don't know. They're better. They're clearly more equipped. They're more capable than a lot of people were giving them credit for. But we didn't come in talking about them that they're going to be 10th in the East or something. And I've tried to focus on the Giannis workload and his usage when he's on the court. But I've also kind of wondered, okay, maybe he will he peter out at some point? But he's also playing 32 plus minutes per game. That's not an astronomical number right now. Are they deeper than maybe we gave them credit for? Might be the question here. I don't know. I still don't know what the ceiling of this team is. I've seen a lot of people get into the Rollins might be a star. They could be the best or second best team in the East. I can't get there. The Ryan Rollins stuff, especially, we knew what he could do on offense, although I didn't expect him to make life hell on Jalen Brunson and Steph Curry in back-to-back games, essentially. I just the offense from him has been huge, and I don't. When you watch him, do you get the sense that he is doing anything? The efficiency, maybe some of the volume will come down, but do you watch him and think none of that he's doing? It's not he's out there hitting these step back off the dribble triples with 18
No.
seconds left on the shot clock.
I having watched him now, and by the way, like he was on the Warriors a few years ago, and it was like this guy's not anything. So the what he's done in that amount of time to become this player, which I think he's for real. I don't know about this all-star stuff, but like he is a true plus defender at the guard that has enough length to guard ones or twos. I do think you just put him on the opponent's main ball handler in the backcourt, and he's going to be very good there. Offensively, I'm just shocked. He has so much craft. He has the 2-foot plant stuff, the step throughs. He can step back. He can hit leaners. He's long around the basket, so he can finish. He goes with either hand. He's a 3-level scorer. Like he really is. He showed it all against Golden State last night. He really, truly. Now, 5 games in, who knows? Like, when you become an actual priority for the opposing defense's scouting, things can change, right? There are bound to be things that defenses can force him to do that he doesn't want to do. But that said, he's never going to be the first priority. As long as Giannis is out there, having a true point guard that can pass, dribble, shoot, and defend, Miles Turner's more established, but you could argue that he's the second best. He's been the second best player on the Bucks this year. He might be going forward. I think he's a legit plus starter today, right now. I don't know what the ceiling is, but I don't think it's fake. I really don't think we're going to be looking back in January and saying, hey, remember the heater Ryan Rollins was on? What happened? Like, I really do think he's going to be just a major value add. And he does make me rethink being pretty low on the Bucks. Like, I can't even remember if I went over or under, but they felt like a 42-ish, win team to me. I think if he's going to be something like this, and Giannis stays healthy, obviously, that's the thing. You might have to think about bumping them up. Now, that said, they're not on Cleveland or New York's level. Like, let's stop that conversation, I think, until we see a lot more. Do you agree with that, or are you kind of buying into like, well, they did beat the Knicks, and maybe they belong up there maybe they're the third best team in the East. Can you get that far? I don't know if I can.
No, I think I might be ready to pencil them in as top 6. To where, because right now, I know they haven't had the cleanest starts, but New York and Cleveland, you expect to get there, and your trust meter kind of runs out after that. So, I mean, if you were to make who's the 3rd seed, I thought I was going to be higher on Orlando to start the season.
Same.
And I'm just not. The same thing with Detroit. I thought I was going to be a little bit higher on them. I'm not.
Atlanta hasn't looked good, and Trae Young's got the knee. We don't actually, as we're recording this, have any reports yet, but he's going to miss time. We know that. Like the usual suspects you'd throw in that number 3 position, they don't look they don't look like we thought they would.
To be fair, then we might have to buy it are the Bucks for real? Because actually, I think the question here is a lot of the stuff over the preseason or offseason, came down to what is this team supposed to do when Giannis isn't on the court?
Yeah,
and Miles Turner, who has not had the strongest offensive start to the season, shooting 40% on threes without Giannis on the court, shooting like 60% on twos or something. The Bucks are winning the minutes that Giannis is off the floor so far. And the minutes with Ryan Rollins and Miles Turner, I believe, without Giannis have been pretty good. Mm-hmm. If you believe the Bucks, by the way, we're all in agreement, Kevin Porter Jr. shouldn't see the starting lineup once he comes back, right?
Absolutely not. Like, Rollins is the guy that what do they do without Giannis? He's like, well, Rollins can run some pick and rolls, and maybe that's enough. Like, Porter Jr. is not going to do that consistently, not well enough, and he's not going to defend anywhere near as well as Rollins does. So, yeah, it's his job. Like, you cannot remove him from the starting lineup. That would be insane.
So I think if you believe, and so I'm actively asking you, that this team is better equipped to log minutes without Giannis. I'm not saying entire games. If you extrapolate that sample size, there will be issues as there would be with any.
Survive.
Yeah. Do you buy that they can survive without Giannis on the court?
In spurts, yeah. Like, but it just, as good as I think Rollins has looked, he and Miles Turner cannot be the basis. Him plus Miles Turner plus 3 shooters is not good enough to approach that third best team in the East level. Like, I think you can expect to win those minutes sometimes, but you're going to lose. Like, it's not like I'm not sure like how enthused we can get based on the sample just yet, but like, it's better than either of us imagined it would be, the non-Giannis stuff, right? Like, that's fair to say already.
Right. So I think I still feel like if they want to be second or third in the East, it'd have to be Giannis ends up missing 5 games total or something throughout the season as playing at this level. What is, I think, an more interesting question, who do you buy more into as a threat? And you could just say, well, the difference is Giannis, but the Bucks or the Heat. Who do you think is more real based off their start?
Yeah, if I don't get to say the difference is Giannis, the argument gets a little harder. Man, I guess I'd buy the Bucks more. Just
I do too, and some of the numbers are just
sense.
Yeah, some of the numbers are screaming at me not to when you look at what some of the players are doing with Giannis off the court. So the Kyle Kuzma 70% on twos without Giannis on the floor. I mean, maybe that does make sense because they're a little redundant there. Cole Anthony shooting the lights like from inside the arc, but also you could argue, well, something like Cole Anthony will probably shoot better from 3 this year, and just seeing AJ Green go off from 3, that's not really any sort of enough. Miles Turner overall should shoot better from 3, right?
Yeah. I mean, Bobby Portis, we haven't even mentioned him. He's had some big nights. Like, Taurean Prince is, what he shoot, like almost 44% from 3 last year. Like, Trent, like, those guys are gonna make, they can't be left. Like, that's just, it's funny. Like, we spent so much time lauding the Heat for this unconventional approach. I think we both believe in it less than Milwaukee's extremely conventional offensive construction, right? Like, it's cool to be innovative, but superstar surrounded by shooters and secondary creator is just like, got it. Makes sense. That works. We know that works.
We haven't talked about the defense a lot. And so they are, when coming into this season, I thought they were going to be a better defensive team than offensive team when you were looking at, and ironically, Ryan Rollins, Miles Turner, Giannis, just having those guys made me think, yeah, that just makes a ton of sense. And we have offensive questions. Now, to this point, the both have been fine, but the defense is 11 versus 6th for the offense. I absolutely buy the idea that Milwaukee can be a top 10, 11, or 12 defense. They're not getting super lucky on opponent shooting. They have, just between Giannis and Miles Turner, like enough guys who are going to be able to make plays around the rim. They've done a better job on a lot of, like, than in seasons past. Like, oh, this is a team that can actually get back in transition. That's pretty big for them. So I think that is something. I guess when I look at the Bucks, I'm trying to figure out, like, do I just buy it's not even a top end team, but if you told me that, yeah, they're going to be the 6th or 7th best offensive team in the league, then yeah, they're the 3rd best team in the East at worst, probably. Yeah. I'm still struggling to get there, but Ryan Rollins is making me rethink a lot of things.
He's the wild card. He's the one that's changed things for them. I agree. He's the most improved player in the league right now, right? Like, I mean, it's the short list conversation.
This isn't a novel concept. We need either a actual definition of most improved player or 2 separate awards, to where it's just the guy that made the established player who made the star leap and then because it's Ryan Rollins, because he was good last year, but he's still working off a relatively low. And what's more impressive, I guess, the leap that and I'm not picking one of these guys for most improved player right now, but what's more impressive, the leap that Ryan Rollins has made or the leap that Victor Wembanyama has made when he is working off the lower baseline? He's going to, your point, though, he's going to be appearing on MIP ballots. That is absolutely for sure.
If we had multiple awards, what would we talk about? So we need fuzzy criteria. It's a feature, not a bug.
Fair enough. I lied. This was not our final team. We have one more team. The Philadelphia 76ers, Grant. I don't know what to make of them. I mean, we can go ahead. You were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I think, to me, what's more interesting about them is not the, like, how have they done this? They're undefeated. They haven't really beaten anybody unless, because Orlando, we don't know. They've beaten Boston, Charlotte, Orlando, and Washington. 3 of the 4 wins were double-digit comebacks. So, like, they could easily be 1-3.
How many minutes is Tyrese Maxey averaging per game at the moment?
The trillion. It's over 40, right?
43, I think. Still
43. That's right. And Edgecombe is not that far behind. 40.2. Jesus Christ. I think what's the place my brain keeps going is, what is Embiid in the way now? Like, because you've got a theory of a team now that's built on hyper athletic guards that should play fast and be in space. But then you've got this 20-minute a night former MVP that needs touches, that can't really help you on defense anymore, that slows the game down. Like the interplay between those two identities, and we haven't even had Paul George yet, is, I don't know. It's just, that's the most interesting discussion point to me of like, what is this team now and later? And like, how does this all work? Because I think the guard stuff, like, I don't know. Maxi's another guy. Is he just going to win Most Improved again? And then like, and Edgecombe has been spectacular. McCain hasn't played yet either. There's another guard to throw in there. You see what I'm getting at? It's just like, there's multiple identities on this team, and it's hard to square them. Maybe we wouldn't even be having this conversation if they hadn't played such a soft schedule and they were 1-3. But it's interesting because they've won on the strength of their guards.
Yeah, and I mean, they have basically 4 guards out there at once, too. And I'm curious as to, I'm sure some minutes will be pulled back for VJ and Maxey once Paul George is healthy, but I'm curious to see what that does to their rotation, because they've been leaning heavily on the guards. And look, it's worth, they have a 132.4 offensive rating with VJ and Maxey on the court. I've been really impressed. We've talked about him already, but the interplay, or the dynamic, I should say, between VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey, where they just kind of know how to play off one another. And I could deal with maybe fewer mid-range looks from VJ Edgecombe, but he's also playing entirely within the flow of the offense. Maxey is still not shooting well from 2 or even finishing well at the rim, and he's already an All-NBA player this season if we were to make those teams. The free throw jump for him has been absolutely massive. I mean, the raw number is more than doubled, but even when you get into the fouls that he's drawing on as an overall share of his plays, huge for this team. I don't have a problem as much now. If the Embiid that we've kind of seen so far, and there's been flickers and flashes, but he's even said he's not comfortable with, they've tried playing him in short bursts, they've tried playing him as regular rotation and then letting him sit a bunch. I don't know what the answer is, but I actually like the idea of kind of having the counter punch for this team. And they're also, when you see Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe on the court together, there's this perception that the team plays really fast all the time, and they're not. And if you're not going to do that, I think you could use Joel Embiid still as, even if he's setting screens and picking and popping, I don't know if he's going to be attacking off the dribble the same way ever again. I honestly don't know. We're so early into the season that maybe he gets used to the minutes that he's playing, or he just gets healthier. We'll have to see. I don't think he's out of place. I think they need him to be a certain version of Joel Embiid if we want to buy into the Sixers as a real, I don't even want to say a threat in the East, but as, let's say, a top 6, top 8 team in the Eastern Conference.
I guess I get hung up on, I think that's right. And also, to your point, they actually are about 2 possessions per 100 faster with Embiid on than off. Right. Samples are small like that, but the numbers are what they are. I guess what I can't get past is, I think you're right that what would make the most sense is you're getting as you said, this version of Embiid where he is like a pick and pop threat that you throw out there for his 20 minutes a night, or maybe it becomes more than that. I don't know. I think if you want him to play 60 plus games, sort of probably can't be more than that. You can't build anything really if the guy you're using for a few minutes a night as a change of pace is making what he's making. And that's just where they are. Like, maybe we should, it's not productive to get into the, like, how bad that contract looks, but it just gets back to my original point of, like, the dynamics of this team are bizarre because Embiid is there, and because he's making what he's making, and because the adjustment for him and for everybody involved of going from central figure, former MVP, everything orbits around him, our title chances hinge on how many games he plays, our whole fate is tied to him, to he's like the 5th or 6th most important player on the roster, or something like that, which is like, how do you navigate all that? Again, maybe that's not a good problem. It's a good problem that you've got these guards and Edgecombe and even McCain last year that are good enough to where you even have this other identity. but it still is just a weird. It's hard to get my head around like who are the Sixers based on the Embiid of it versus this kind of new version.
And honestly, I'm probably more concerned with what I guess because Embiid stands. He's not overlapping with anyone mission critical at his position.
Sure.
And so with Paul George, this team feels like they could use wings. And I love Justin Edwards to see a true wing. He's also not playing a ton of minutes. You would think he, of all people, might be able to get more. Is he at 11.5 per game? I worry about Paul George coming back in the sense of, okay, well, what does he look like within this? I think as a complementary offensive player, you probably, if they're all do you trust him more than Embiid? I don't know. But when some of your best lineups or some of your best punches have come, we're going to have 3 guards on the court, 4 guards on the court. He's more out of play because you're always going to need the big man. And so I'm curious to see how they use him. And then you mentioned Jared McCain. We haven't talked about him because he hasn't played. But like, I guess I trust him to fit into all this, but are they brazen enough to say, yeah, VJ, Tyrese, and McCain are going to play together? Because VJ Edgecombe is Grant. He's listed at 6'4", right? I want to recount.
He never looks that tall to me. Yeah.
And he fights defensively. We'll see if it comes together. But you also have to ask, well, is that setup sustainable with them playing so small all the time? They have a bottom 10 defense right now. And when you look at this team, that's honestly the bigger question to me is they're the best 3-point shooting team in the league, but they're also not taking a ton of them relative to the league average. And then I'm like, well, is Kelly Oubre Jr. going to shoot like this? How much do you trust VJ Edgecombe moving forward? There are questions about the offense, but can they be better than this on defense? I don't know if you're going to play so small. Even if you say, hey, we're not going to play small, I don't know that you could build me a lineup that I'm going to say, yeah, you really threw a defensive fastball at the other team right now.
Because their athletic guard, like Maxi's not a very good defender. And so like Edgecombe has a heavy lift there. McCain has not been a good defender in his tiny career sample. I don't think Embiid is necessarily a positive defensive player anymore, just because of the mobility. And like if he can't switch onto anybody, so he limits the coverages you can use that he's involved in. Who knows what Paul George is going to give? Yeah, I think you're right that the defensive side is, and it hasn't been that good so far, and they haven't played anybody. It could get like really problematic, and then the offense has an even heavier lift.
I will say, I just wonder if by virtue of Joel Embiid being so massive, is he still at least a deterrent? To some extent,
because he can't get off the floor and he can't move though. I don't know.
This is the caveat that just look at the teams that they have played, but teams are getting to the rim 8.3% at like lower when he's on that was a terrible way to phrase it, but 8.3% fewer of their shots are coming at the rim when he's on the floor, and that's in line with what he did last season in again a diminished capacity because he didn't play in a ton of games. But I'm with you in the sense that I'm worried because of the way that he's moving, can't jump. The mobility is just not there.
Yeah, I mean it's an eye test analysis. Like, and we should defer to the numbers. The numbers are what they are. He is reducing rim attempt frequency, but like, it's hard for me to imagine he can be helpful.
Well, does it help them at all? Where if their offense is going to be good to great? And where do they even rank on the offensive end of the floor right now? I didn't even have that. They're second. That's pretty good. If that's just what they are, does your defense get set enough to where that's how you insulate Joel Embiid a little bit? I don't know, but it's a fair thing to question out. I don't know what to make of this team. I don't know how to frame the question of are they real? Do you think, let's take this in 2 layers. Do you think that they have the ability to be a top 5 offense? Are you buying that?
I got to say no, just because it's propped up by unsustainable shooting at this point. And like Maxey and Edgecombe can't be this good, full time. I think the offense is going to be good. Top 5 that's a little too good. What do you think?
I think I'm probably with you. And the thing that I would also throw into there is even if Edgecombe's going to hit a rookie wall. We always see it. But the minutes that Tyrese Maxey's locking specifically would concern me. You have to figure out a way to pull those back. Maybe you should get healthier. The second of 3 questions, do they have the ability to be better than, I'm going to say 19th in defense this year?
I mean, maybe. Like George, I'll say yeah. George isn't what he was, but he's got length and he's smart and will be better than he'll help more than like some of their 3 and 4 guard looks might. And maybe a Dembona really is going to be, you just block every shot, and that'll be another way for them to be decent. I don't know if they're better than, they can't be top 10, like, right? Or even top 15 feels out of the question.
I think even if Embiid was Embiid, he would need to be available for 65 games and play 30 minutes for that probably to happen. Okay, so are they a potential top 6 team in the East? Yay or nay? I'll start. I'm going to say no. I can't get
pretty
there.
skeptical. I think what's most interesting is like the things I'm considering when trying to answer that question are not the things I was considering before the season started, right? Because it was just like, how many games is Embiid going to play? How many minutes? There's your answer. And now it's just like, that doesn't really have anything to do with it.
Is it? It's an objectively good thing though that we have to think of it. We're able to think of it in those broader terms of it's not about how often is Joel Embiid playing. It's what is the ceiling of this team of VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey being your 2 most valuable players?
Well, yes and no, because if it was the original set of factors, which is just how many games does Embiid play, that presupposes that he was going to be like an all-star or an all-NBA level player. You might still rather have that than, okay, we got this guy that can play 20 minutes. And I don't know. It cuts both ways for me.
It adds, you're right, it adds to the confusion of their outlook,
Right.
which makes them more fascinating, probably.
Yeah.
We have some quick hitters. Do you want to take us through them?
Yeah. So, Dan, let's start with the New York Knicks. And I can't remember what my quick hitter was going to be. I was hoping it would get up on the screen so that I could ask you.
It's buy or sell them as a top 10 defensive team.
I'll start, and then you can go. I'm selling. Mitchell Robinson hasn't played yet, but I struggle with the idea of Cat. I think we got to factor in the quad for Cat, but he's looked less mobile than ever to me. So I'll sell them as a top 10 defense. What say you?
I would I'm going to sell them as well, just because even if Mitchell Robinson comes back, you sort of have to wonder, how often is he going to play for the defense to be good? But what I am going to keep an eye on, I'm not fully prepared to sell the idea, is now that you have Mikal Bridges in a better defensive role. So Deuce McBride, when he's around, and he is back with the team now, at the point of attack, and then OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are behind him. Even if you have Cat and Jalen Brunson on the floor, there's a lot of different things you could do. With all that being said, even given that their offense has underperformed relative to their defense, with the amount of wide open threes they're missing, the fact that they're learning a new system, I ultimately think that I'm going to believe, if you have to pick one, what's more likely, a top 5 offense or a top 10 defense? I still think that they'll get up there on offense before they would on defense.
Unscripted quick hitter. Are you higher or lower on the Knicks overall today than you were before the season started?
Lower. And it has little to do with the offensive learning curve and more just they're not as deep as people were advertising them. I think I sipped the Kool-Aid a little bit on that. It's just Jordan Clarkson's erratic. Gershon Yabusele banged up right now, was not playing up to snuff. The Mitchell Robinson, how many games he would load manage to start the season. And if Karl-Anthony Towns is really playing through a grade 2 quad strain, I would assume he needs to miss time at like grade 2. That's not like that's not
you
that's
should
not a
stop.
nothing.
If you're playing through a grade 2 quad strain, maybe don't. How about that?
And the backup playmaking of it all makes it, and it comes back a lot. It's not fully on Towns, but a lot of it does come back to Karl-Anthony Towns for me. Is it feels like we're dealing with, and I probably fell victim to this a little bit too, another team, despite a decades of evidence to the contrary, believing that Karl-Anthony Towns is something other than he is, which is a generational talent who is not always going to play like it. And even the things that he does best, like when he's driving and scoring through contact, he's not playmaking for others out of live dribbles. He can get tunnel vision in the post. The defense, you have not decided because you've been willing to go by force because your front court has been so banged up, but you think that you're going to need to play dual big a lot to insulate him defensively. That's a problem. So I'm lower, but I'm more hopeful. A lot of people have been doomsday with their start. I just think they're playing materially different compared to last season. And so and one of the bigger differences is too, Cat will have to get healthier, but on balance, the entire team will hit more of their wide open threes is just sort of where I'm at with them.
Okay.
Grant, buy or sell another defensive one. The Trailblazers is a top 10 defense this year.
I mean, I'm going to buy it. This was, now they're just barely there for the moment. I think they're 9th in cleaning the glass. This was always the way that the Blazers were going to be good, right? Like, I think like just between you add Holiday to a team that already has Tamani Kamara, Matisse Thybulle's back. Like, I don't know what he is bottom line as a defender, but he definitely deflects a lot of basketballs, and that's valuable to a defense. Klingon, I think, was always someone that his chief value was going to be defensively. They're going to be defined by their defense. Their offense we have questions about, and I would say like this is aligning with our priors pretty closely, or at least with mine anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess it maybe be more interesting. Are they a league average offense? They are playing so fast right now. Jeremy Grant off the bench is apparently a cheat code for them. I don't know, when you watch them defend, though, they have to have the highest pickup point in the NBA. They're number one, and they're forcing turnovers on 22% of their possessions. I think when you look at the personnel, even when they've had minutes at this where it's, there's not like an actual center on the court. They're just built like Blake Wesley just being in his. Have you watched Blake Wesley dribble? Uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It's also uncomfortable to dribble against Blake Wesley because he picks you up the second you touch the ball in the backcourt. That's his whole job now.
So they have those guys. He looks like when he's bringing the ball up the court and he's not trying to speed demon it. You remember those skip it things when we were growing up? It looks like he's wearing one of those and trying to come up the floor. It's very uncomfortable. I think top 10's a high bar, but what's the point of not overreacting to the start of the season? I would sell them having a league average offense, quite frankly, even if Jeremy Grant not going to score like this forever. Drew Holiday looks like he might have more gas in the tank than a lot of people expected. I'll buy the top 10 defense though. Same. They're a fun team. We have one more.
I'll give you this one because I remember it. You're going to buy or sell the Utah Jazz as a top 5 offense, which is what they are right now. Did you see the nickname for the front court? I think Mark Stein or maybe Jake Fisher on the Stein line put it out there.
No, I didn't. What was it?
Trace Leches. For Kyle Filipowski, Lauri Markkanen, and Walker Kessler. Solid nicknaming.
I think if you could play 3 7-footers for like 30 minutes a game, I'll continue. And they're going to play that the way that they do right now. I'm going to buy it. The thing that I can't buy, well, I don't know if I can't buy, but like Keontae George looking like a point guard all of a sudden has excellent chemistry with basically every single one of Utah's big men. I want to buy it, but the reason I'm going to sell it is because I have to believe that they're going to pull back at some point, despite what Austin Ainge said. And even if they don't, I don't know if Keontae George is going to shoot and pass this ball on his drives. Lauri Markkanen, I think, is proving a lot of people they were concerned about him and the way he performed last year, and he's been playing fantastic right now. I have to sell. Top 5 is just insanity. Right. So I'm going to have to sell it.
We've got Ace Bailey up on the graphic. I think one way to make sure you're not a top 5 offense is as the season goes on, he's getting more minutes that would have gone to Markkanen or Filipowski, which is probably what you should do to develop him, but he's not going to be nearly as efficient or provide the volume as an offensive player, maybe the volume, but he's going to knock your offense down, and that's not a bad thing.
I also wonder, just giving Svi Mikhailuk the kind of agency and license he has on offense, I understand it, but I kind of feel like that might also work in service of pulling your offense back at some point.
Did not have him as the starting shooting guard very often in my preseason predictions for the Jazz.
But you would buy into them just though they might be more fun to watch than anyone was anticipating.
I could get there. George has a lot to do with that because he was just such an empty calorie, like just bad decision factory last season, and just him developing kind of puts all the other pieces in better position to succeed in the offense to look like this is so far it's been much more than a functional offense, but it could be a functional offense all year. Do you think, let's fast forward 15 games. They're still in the top, let's even say the top 10 or something. Let's say top 7 of offense. Are they going to be steering out of, does Isaiah Collier coming back from the hamstring issue, does that help or hurt them? I know he's their best passer, but there's real limitations there. It'll hurt because he's not going to score like George is right now. If he starts eating into George's minutes, it's like a negative by default. Yeah. I mean, if we get to like the 15-20 game mark and this is a top 10 offense, then that's when it's just, not to pick on him, but like it's time for some Cody Williams minutes. Get him out there.
The other thing, and were you surprised, you did kind of mention this, that Ace Bailey is not playing more to start the year?
I
thought he was going to get what VJ Edgecombe is doing right now. Right. I thought he was going to get that type of volume.
That's his rookie of the year case, right? Is like they got no reason not to just give him maximum touches. He'll struggle. The offense will be bad. He'll have good counting stats. That hasn't happened yet. And maybe this is let's showcase the Mikhailuks and whoever else is of the world, and maybe we can trade him for something before we really steer into it. But I mean, Bailey has to be a bigger part of this team, like by mid-season at the absolute latest. He just has to.
Now, the final thing to buy or sell. He's shooting. What is he shooting? 6 of 8 from 3-point range this year. Does Walker Kessler belong in a 3-point competition?
It's an entertainment product, is it not? I think that's a definite yes.
I will say the way he's kind of played is making me wonder what was the extension number that would have locked him down, and should they have pounced on it? I know the cap hold stuff and them prioritizing cap space, but I don't view them as a team that's going to want to fast track this. Maybe I'm wrong, but they've been fun. They've played some just real, like the game against Phoenix was just super fun. It was super nerve wracking, and I had no rooting interest. Super fun. You have anything else for us, or are you ready to take us out of here?
I'm ready to take us out of here. Good, hot starts by us as well. I buy those. Great start to the season. Excellent content being produced. As always, everybody, please rate, review, subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends, tell your enemies, join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube podcast description. And let us know in the comments which hot starts you believe in that we don't, and which you don't believe in that we do. And then also let us know how many threes you think Walker Kessler will hit on the season, and why what's the over-under? 50? Is he going to hit 50 threes?
I'm going to take the over. We're going to get to a point where they might. Yeah, I'm going over too. We're taking the over.
More fun.
Done.
Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.